Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on more stories like this one. Today, we're diving into a tale that might hit close to home for many renters out there, a story about an unjustified rent increase, a frustrated tenant, and a landlord left in a bind. Grab your popcorn, because this one's a doozy. So, imagine this: you've been a model tenant for years. You pay your rent on time, you keep your place spotless, you fix minor issues yourself, and you've built a pretty good relationship with your landlord. You're thinking, life's good, I've got a stable home. Then, out of the blue, you get that dreaded letter. Not a friendly check-in, not a thanks for being a great tenant note, but a cold hard notice. Your rent is going up. And not by a small amount, but by a significant chunk. Now, a rent increase isn't always a bad thing, right? Sometimes it's justified. Property taxes go up, maintenance costs increase, or maybe the market value of rentals in the area has genuinely soared. A reasonable landlord would usually explain this, offer some context, or at least be open to a conversation. But in our story today, that wasn't the case. Our protagonist, let's call her Sarah, was completely blindsided. Her landlord, Mr. Henderson, simply stated the new amount with no explanation, no justification, and absolutely no room for negotiation. Sarah had been living in her apartment for over 5 years. It was a decent place, not luxury by any stretch, but it was her home. She had put in her own effort to make it comfortable, repainting walls with permission, of course, maintaining the small garden patch, and generally treating the property as if it were her own. She'd even handled minor repairs that, frankly, should have been the landlord's responsibility, just to be helpful and maintain peace. So, when this arbitrary rent hike came, it felt like a slap in the face. She tried to talk to Mr. Henderson. She called him. She emailed him. She even dropped by his office. Her attempts were met with either silence or a curt, "The new rent is effective next month. If you can't afford it, you're free to leave." Ouch. That's not exactly how you foster goodwill, is it? Sarah felt disrespected and undervalued. She knew the market in her area, and while rents had gone up slightly, this increase was far beyond what was reasonable for her apartment, especially considering its condition and amenities. There were no new upgrades, no improvements, nothing to warrant such a jump. It was purely an opportunistic move by the landlord, banking on Sarah's long tenure and presumed reluctance to move. But Sarah wasn't going to be pushed around. She had invested years into this place, not just financially, but emotionally. She started doing her research. She looked at comparable apartments in the neighborhood, talked to real estate agents, and checked local tenant rights laws. What she found confirmed her suspicions. Mr. Henderson's increase was indeed unreasonable, and, in some aspects, potentially even predatory. She also realized that finding a new place, even with the current market, would likely be cheaper or offer better value than staying put and paying the inflated rent. This realization ignited a fire in her. She decided then and there that she wasn't just going to accept this. She wasn't just going to pay the higher rent or quietly move out. She was going to make sure Mr. Henderson understood the consequences of his actions. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, Sarah is a law-abiding citizen. She wasn't planning anything illegal or destructive. Her plan was far more subtle, and in my opinion, utterly brilliant in its passive-aggressive genius. She gave her official notice to vacate the apartment. The standard 30-day notice, completely by the book. When Mr. Henderson finally responded, it was with a tone of surprise, bordering on disbelief. He probably assumed she was bluffing or would eventually cave. He even tried to offer a slightly reduced rate, but it was too little, too late. The trust was broken. Sarah had already committed to moving. Here's where it gets interesting. Sarah is a meticulous person. She had an extensive collection of her original move-in inspection report, photos of the apartment's condition when she first moved in, and records of every single repair she had ever reported or handled herself. She also had photos and videos of the apartment's current condition, documenting everything. This wasn't just for her protection. It was crucial for her plan. Her mess wasn't dirt or damage. Oh no, it was far more strategic. Remember all those minor repairs she had done herself over the years? The dripping faucet she'd replaced a washer for, the loose cabinet door she'd rescrewed, the squeaky hinge she'd oiled. Things she took care of because she was a good tenant and wanted to maintain her living space. Well, as her moving date approached, Sarah decided to revert the apartment to its exact asterisk condition as per the original move-in report. Minus normal wear and tear, of course. So, the dripping faucet. She put the old worn-out washer back in. The newly secured cabinet door. She loosened the screws again. The freshly painted walls. She didn't repaint them to their original drab off-white, as she had permission to paint them a cheerful blue. But she also didn't touch up any tiny scuffs or marks that had accumulated over 5 years of living, leaving them for the landlord to deal with. She carefully removed any personal touches she had added, including all her plants and her custom-made curtains, leaving the bare window blinds that were there when she arrived. She didn't damage anything. She didn't destroy anything. She simply stopped going above and beyond. She stopped caring for the property as if it were her own. She left the apartment in a perfectly acceptable broom-clean condition, as required by her lease, but absolutely nothing more. Every little thing she had done to improve the living experience, every small maintenance task she had taken upon herself, was either undone or simply not maintained in her final weeks. For example, she always kept the small patio garden meticulously pruned and watered. In her last month, she stopped. The plants started to wilt. Not dead, just not thriving. The previously spotless baseboards, not wiped down in her final clean. The light bulbs she had replaced with brighter, more energy-efficient ones. She put the old, dim, standard ones back in, or left them empty if the original fixture was designed to be empty. When Mr. Henderson came for the final walkthrough, he was expecting to find the immaculate apartment he had grown accustomed to. Instead, he found an apartment that was technically clean and undamaged, but felt neglected. The garden was droopy, the appliances were clean but not sparkling, the walls were free of holes but the touch-up paint was gone, revealing minor blemishes. The charm Sarah had infused into the place was completely gone. It looked exactly like a rental property that had been minimally maintained for 5 years, not a cherished home. He was furious, but he couldn't point to a single lease violation. The apartment was broom clean. There was no actual damage beyond normal wear and tear. All the items she had removed were her personal property or were items she had added to the apartment, not removed from what was originally provided. He couldn't justify withholding her security deposit based on the state of the apartment, because legally, she had met all her obligations. The mess Sarah left him with wasn't physical clutter or destruction. It was the mess of realizing what a truly good tenant he had lost. It was the mess of having to invest actual time and money to bring the apartment back to a desirable state, something he hadn't had to do for 5 years. He now had to pay for professional cleaning, gardening services, touch-up painting, and potentially even replacing those dim light bulbs. He also faced the challenge of showing a bare-bones apartment to prospective tenants, rather than the lovingly cared-for home it had been. The word quickly spread through the neighborhood about Mr. Henderson's unreasonable rent increase and Sarah's departure. Other tenants, who had also experienced similar issues with him, started to consider their options. Sarah's story became a quiet rallying cry for respectful landlord-tenant relationships. She moved into a new apartment, found a much more reasonable landlord, and felt a huge weight lifted off her shoulders. This story isn't about promoting vengeance or property damage. It's a fantastic example of a tenant asserting their rights, refusing to be exploited, and making a point within the bounds of legality. It highlights the importance of keeping detailed records, understanding your lease, and knowing your rights as a renter. Sometimes, the most impactful way to leave a mess is to simply stop providing the uncompensated labor and care that good tenants often contribute, leaving the landlord to face the true cost of their own short-sightedness. What do you think of Sarah's approach? Have you ever had a similar experience with a landlord? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and found it insightful, please give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more engaging content. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next one.